Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Awake Arise. Good to see a lot of familiar faces tonight. We are here today to show you what's going on in our culture and society. It is a blessing to be here. Thank you to the Tron for hosting us today. Pastor Willie Phillip, we really appreciate it. It's such a great blessing to be here. And it's amazing to see so many of you. So we're going to welcome Andrea WIlliams, the Chief Executive of Christian Concern and the Christian Legal Center. I worked alongside Andrea for a few years down in London. Now I'm based here in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and still help and when I can, I do help and assist, and decided to host this Awake Arise in Scotland. We had a great evening yesterday in Edinburgh, and we've been in other venues and other events while Andrea's been here. So it's been a few good full-on days for us, but it's been such a blessing. So Andrea qualified as a barrister in 1988. With her background in law, she founded Christian Concern and the Christian Legal Center, which have run some of the most high-profile Christian freedom cases and campaigns in Europe. She is a leading analyst, campaigner, and spokeswoman on issues of national and international importance in the moral life of the nations, and a defender of Christian liberties in the parliamentary process, the justice system, and the media. She is passionate about seeing our culture transformed by the gospel in every area of society. She is married to Gareth. They have 4 children. On overcoming cancer in 2010, Andrea took up marathon running and has completed over 14 marathons while raising money for the work of Christian Concern. We'd like to welcome Andrea WIlliams. Yeah.
But I want the children to come and run the New York Marathon with me. It's great to be in Scotland, and it's great to have been here for the past 4 days. I fly back to London tomorrow. Let me say I'm leaving with a heavy heart. And I'm leaving with a heavy heart because there's heaviness in the air, in the spiritual air of Scotland. I knew that you were ahead. I knew that you were ahead in your laws in terms of, we legislate morality. Laws, there is nothing that's neutral in public life. We either orient towards God or we orient away from Him. And I know that many of your laws are entirely oriented away from Him. So how can a nation be blessed? How can a nation be well when so many laws actually resist Him? And I felt that in a very real sense in the last 4 days. And I suppose I'm here to say tonight, the hope of Scotland is in this room. The hope of Scotland, the hope of Glasgow is in this room. So having felt heavy, there's a sense in which I can be here tonight. And I know that God's not done because you've come out on a Tuesday night. And when things get heavy and the goodness seems to have departed, then what is the answer? There's a sense in which we rebuild, we model what loving Jesus looks like. We model what family is. We model church community. We model community and friendship. If our schools aren't safe, we start schools. We're effectively hospitals for the lost, the sick, the lonely, the bereaved. That's what we need to be, hospitals. So there's hope in this room. And Scotland waits in eager expectation for his people to be entirely revealed. And you know what? Jesus, he is famous. He needs to be famous. He needs to be made known. He's not so famous right now in Scotland. But let me just tell you a quick story of where he is famous. Very famous. Korea. I was there 2 weeks ago. Exactly. And I went for 7 minutes because the church leaders called me to go to Korea for 7 minutes. They said, we're going to have a 2 million rally. And I said, I thought, 2 million? I couldn't get my head around that. But we want you to come. This rally is because we don't want same-sex marriage in Korea. We don't want the anti-discrimination legislation. And you told us about this in 2014. I get off the plane on Friday and I go straight to a church. I'm fed this beautiful Korean meal by the pastor, but then I move at 9 o'clock into the sanctuary. There are 1,000 people there on a Friday night. They are suited, they are booted, they worship very primly. When I speak, they're looking just straight at me. Every age group represented. And then they pray. And when they pray, they go, whoa! And they lay down, and they weep, and they're crying out to God. We depart from the church at 12, midnight. My hosts go on to pray all night with the Esther movement, which was one of my original entry points into Korea. I get up at 5:45 I'm picked up at 5:45. This is all 2 weeks ago, on the Saturday. And I go to a church for 6:30. I walk into the sanctuary. There are 3,000 people praying. And that's a lie-in for them, because that church, which is situated opposite the law courts, opposite the police, the head of police, opposite the parliament, that church meets at 5:30. 1,000 people meet at 5:30 in the morning, every morning, before they go to work in central Seoul. Then, Sunday morning, get up really early to go to the rally. The barricades are coming like it's a marathon, only it's not a marathon. Jesus Christ's name is going to be made known in the center of Seoul. His name is going to be lifted high. So, I go, and there are 1.1 million people come to the set as far as you can look. And you know what? They're not there for a worship festival. I've got 2 sons-in-laws who are worship leaders, so I love worship, I love all of that, but the point is, they are there to say this is the title of the rally, Happy Families, Holy Nation. No, and it's no to the anti-discrimination legislation, because they know that anti-discrimination legislation discriminates against God, discriminates against his truth. Can you imagine that? They are there to say that to their nation. We want holiness. A holy people is a happy people. 1 in 50 of the population turned up. So again, they said, thank you, Andrea, for warning us. We will resist. And I said, thank you for praying. Thank you for praying. The Lord works through prayer. The other thing they said, missionaries came from Scotland and England. This is the fruit of their work. I've been thinking about that all the time. What a thought. Because the missionaries that went may have died. And today, it was in fact 2 million did come out across the whole of Seoul. 1 in 25 of the population. You see, it's true that a holy people makes a happy nation. A holy people is a happy people. And that's why we are the hope. You are the hope of Scotland. Oh, now I went too fast. Let me just move back. got to get, I think I've moved too fast. There we are. That's a little bit about who we do. So you got the little promo of Christian Concern. We're a team of 40 at base. We've got 8 full-time lawyers that work with us. We've got a communications department of about eight people, a policy work that seeks to speak into government, assessing the laws. We've also got an education department, and we're involved at the moment in setting up 40 schools up and down the country. We've got a Wilberforce Academy and a Wilberforce Collective where we are invested in a network of next generation young men and women in all spheres of life, in law, media, politics, the arts, education, every sphere of life. We work really hard on those things. And we also seek to mobilize and equip the church. So part of being here tonight is to say, here we are, we're part of one body, you're God's people here, and will we mobilize for his kingdom purposes to make his name known at the heart of our nation? You see, he is King, he is Lord of Lords, and it's in part because we've allowed his name to be removed from the conversation that we're in the state that we presently are. Not quite sure why my clicker isn't working. There we are. Oh, and then it moves fast again. So if you aren't already connected with us, would you please connect with us? You've got a little pack there, because what we love to have is to people to really be on this journey with us. I'm sorry about this. This was working earlier. If we just go back to the... I prefer to be able to move it on myself if possible, just because of the content and the volume of it. All right? Okay. So this is me in 1988. So just so that you know a little bit about who it is that's speaking to you this evening. My father is the youngest of 10. He's Italian, and he was born, he's Neapolitan, he's got Neapolitan blood. He was sent to a seminary to become a priest when he was 11 years of age, but he walked out into a piazza in Rome, age 16, and he caught the eye of a pretty woman, and he said, I'm no priest. But the priests had given him a really good education in Latin and in Greek, and he decided then, he became a cordon bleu chef, and he was traveling through Europe, like on a gap year, and as he came to England, he met my mum. She was just 15 at the time. On their first date, he said, I will never marry an English woman. 1 year later, they were married, and I came along very soon thereafter. My mum was just 17 when she had me. They did not have faith. I was born in a caravan, and I remember my father, who saved all his tips. I remember him building his first house on a local new build estate. I remember him putting in the bricks. But it was on that new build estate that a church sent a bus, a little minibus. Eastern Methodist Church sent a bus to pick up all the children on the estate. And I was 4. And my mum put me onto the bus, along with all the other children on the estate. And it was Eastern Methodist Sunday School. There, Mrs. Hicks, my first Sunday school teacher, told me all about Jesus. And the reality is this: I can't remember a single day when I have not loved Jesus. I believed her and I believed in him. Then my next Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Hibbs, said that the best present I could ever have was a Bible, and to read my Bible every day. I took Mrs. Hibbs at her word. I asked for a Bible. I was given a Bible. And almost every day from that day to this, I've read my Bible. Aged 8, at home from school with chickenpox, I watched Crown Court on the television. And I said to my mum, when I grow up, I'm going to be a barrister. And I'm never going to change my mind. And that night, I got down on my basil brush carpet, shared a bunk bed with my sister, and I prayed my usual prayer. God bless Mum, God bless Dad, God bless Aldina, God bless Sam the cat, amen. And then there was and dear Lord Jesus, if it is your will, please may I pass the 11 plus so that I can go to the grammar school, so that I can become a barrister. And I prayed that prayer every single night until the Lord granted me the desire of my heart. And I was one of 2 children from Portland Top Hill Junior School that went on the south coast of England, that went from Portland, a peninsula, across to Weymouth to the grammar school. And I'm telling you this story because the story of this work is weaved into the whole of my life. That loving Jesus, being taught by faithful Sunday school teachers, praying to be a barrister, becoming a barrister. And then I studied law and Italian. I practiced criminal and family law for 8 years prior to the birth of the first of our 4 children. And if you had told me when I was studying law or in my early years that in this country we would redefine marriage to be between 2 men and 2 women, I would have said impossible. If you had told me street preachers would be arrested and put in cells, I would have said impossible. If you had told me it would be possible in law to change your birth certificate from male to female, I would have said impossible. If you had said that you would represent in your career nurses who lose their jobs because they offer prayer, I'd have said impossible. But we have 1,000 case inquiries at the Christian Legal Centre every year. We currently have in the region of 70 live cases. And some cases are sitting in this room this evening. That has been the story of the Christian Legal Centre. And in a sense, when I began to do this work, and I began to see what was happening and began to speak of him, I began to see just how difficult it was all going to be. You see, back in the late 80s, 90s, Christian lawyers said, Andrea, our job is to apply the law, not make the law. And I said, but what if it's bad law? What if it's ungodly law? Church, what are you going to do if we have bad law, ungodly law? Law is not neutral. There is no neutral space. What are you going to say? Who's going to speak up for God in the public space? The church is church. We are church. We are a body, but we're not private. We don't keep this inside. And it's not just. It's as if sometimes we have reduced Jesus to a therapeutic Jesus. Jesus is mine. It's my personal faith. No, he's public truth. He's public truth. He's true for me, yes, personally, but for our families and for our communities and for our nation. So here's my little family for you to get a glimpse of them. Thanks. So what is the church about? Who are we? This is something that you will all know here, but we are to be people known because we follow the greatest commandment. What is the greatest commandment? Jesus, teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Notice it's in the law. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first commandment. And the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. I love the Message version on this because when the Pharisees heard how Jesus had bested the Sadducees, I quite like that. Have we been doing some besting? Are we going to going out there and saying, these laws are not of God, these laws will make us unwell as a nation? Have we gone out there and spoken in that kind of language? Do we have the courage to do it? This is not good. But Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your what? Passion. People sometimes call me passionate, or quite often. But I'm very serious, actually. There is quite a lot, there's deep passion, but it's not frivolous passion. It's really rooted in something that it's rooted in this grief I feel all over Scotland, just by being here. It's the aroma in the air. Again, not to be strong about it, it's like sin is sad, sin is bad, sin is mad, and it leads to death. And there's the stench in the air. So you love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and what? Intelligence. Love others as well as you love yourself. These 2 commandments are what are they? They are pegs. And everything in what? In God's law and the prophets hangs on them. So if you hold, Jesus said, to my teaching, It's then that you'll really, so if you love him, you're going to hold to his teaching, and then you will really be his disciples, and then you'll know the truth. And what does the truth do? It sets us free. You know, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. And the thing about his truth is that it sets us free from all bondage to sin. And it's not just personally, because holy families are happy families. Holy communities are happy communities. Holy nations are happy nations. That's why it's so important that we're not ashamed of his truth. And if we really love him, we'll not be ashamed of his truth in the public space. Because Colossians 1 tells him that this Jesus is everything. In him, everything holds together. The whole of creation. He's before all things, and in him all things hold together. What are all things? He was present at the beginning, Genesis 1. God made us male and female, the pattern for life, the pattern for family. That we were to have no other gods before him, that we are here to subdue the earth, to cultivate, to create. We were given the 10 Commandments that, again, good law, godly law is simple law. It's not 1,000 regulations that tie you up in knots and put you in fear. It's not pages of forms that are 50 pages long that make you scared just by looking at them. It's not 1,000 policies. It's actually a character culture. God's law creates character. God's law creates goodness. God's law is easily understood. God's law conforms to who we are as human beings. A nation that moves away from God's laws gets complicated laws. And then the commandments are simple. That he's uniquely true is important. But what happens when a nation forgets? We suppress the truth, Romans 1. We exchange the truth for a lie. We worship the lie. And then we approve and practice the lie in law. And we punish those that speak against the law. Why is it that people get into trouble for talking about Jesus at work? Because they're being punished in law. Because they say the truth about what Jesus' truth is actually homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic. It breaches equality and diversity law. Martin Luther said, if I profess with the loudest voice and clearest exposition every portion of the word of God except precisely that little point which the world and the devil are at that moment attacking, I'm not confessing Christ, however boldly I may be professing him. Where the battle rages, there the loyalty of the soldier is proved, and to be steady on all the battlefronts besides is mere flight and disgrace if he flinches at that point. So where is the gospel under attack? Genesis 1, life, family, and Jesus Christ as King. The crisis in the culture is that what we as modern man have done is we've given ourselves the right to redefine who we are, what it means to be human, gender, the right to kill, abortion, the right to polygamy, homosexuality, the right to suicide, the right to homosexual marriage, the right to pornography. We've given these rights. G.K. Chesterton said, it's only by believing in God that we can ever criticize the government or criticize the bad laws. It's only if we understand truth. Abolish God, and the Scottish government becomes the God. And it feels tyrannical. That fact is written across all human history. Wherever the people do not believe in something beyond the world, they will worship the world. They will, but above all, they will worship the strongest thing in the world. And, we are idolizing now. We make an idol of our bodies. We make an idol of self. We make an idol of sex. We make an idol of wealth, of status, of position, and self-determination. So the quick history lesson, in a sense, is this: 70 years, just over 70 years now, that Queen Elizabeth came to the throne. I've talked about our great common law heritage. Common law essentially is biblical law. Common law is a law that's common to us all, rooted in biblical history. Moving away from that with the advent of human rights legislation and equality and diversity legislation. But something of a picture of what our nation was is vested in the coronation and it's reflected through our precedent-setting laws generally and our common law. Will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel? That's said to our monarch. All this I promise to do. Then the moderator of Scotland hands the Bible to King Charles III and said this, our king, to keep your majesty ever mindful of the law and the gospel of God as the rule for the whole life and government of Christian princes, we present you with the Bible, the most valuable thing this world affords. Here is wisdom, this is royal law, these are the lively oracles of God. That, my friends, see, Jesus was famous. The Bible is right at the center of our institutions, of our parliament, of our legal system, of the monarchy, our schools, our hospitals, and we've removed him. But this is it. This is why we have been mightily blessed. This is why we sent missionaries to Korea. Because we were proud of him. What's happened? When the Queen came to the throne, abortion and homosexual acts were illegal. Today they're both legal. Babies born outside of marriage was 4.8%. Today it's 51.4%. The number of marriages was 350,000 with 50 million in the population. Today, 240,000 with 67 million people in the population. Divorce was at 34,000. Today it's at 113,000 divorces in England, Scotland, and Wales. That's a massive social shift. What happened with the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, the contraception pill, the 1950s, you then moved to the kind of free love movement of the 1960s. Pop culture comes in, the throwing off of God, the cult of freedom, cult of body emerging, and what you then get is sex beginning to occur out with the marital union, because people think they can because of contraception. But of course what happens is if you have sex outside of a bond, a marital bond, you can get pregnant. And that then creates a demand for an abortion. And so what happens? Well, first of all, let's look at our unborn children. This is right at the beginning. I've got a little grandson in the womb of my daughter right now, 3 weeks. I was calling him Santiago Navarro, but I think they're going to call him Moses Navarro. I gave him the name Santiago for the first 12 weeks. Mum, do you mind if we call him Moses? 10 weeks. Look at that, 19 weeks. My little Moses is more than 19 weeks now. Abortion is illegal unless the mother's life is at risk. This is still the law, or the risk of physical or mental problems to the mental health of the mother. It's greater if she continues with the pregnancy. 2 doctors have to sign off on that. It's a very high bar. Abortion was meant to occur very rarely. But you give a chink. You see, God's law is simple. Do not kill. Do not take life. You put a chink in like that, and what happens? First year, 21,000 abortions. By the year 2000, 200,000 abortions every year. Now, about 270,000 abortions every year in England, Scotland, and Wales. What does that number look like? It looks like 15% of the entire UK population. What's the population of Glasgow? 600,000. So every year we wipe out half of Glasgow. All right? 10.4 million citizens of the United Kingdom have not had their first breath. You see, that social revolution of the 1960s has been very bloody indeed. So we have, in a sense, there's just blood. running through this nation. And who does God have to speak? Only us. Who does God have to rescue? The babies and the mums and the babies and the dads. Because, if you have been told that they're just a clump of cells and not really a human, then how do you know any different if you've never been told about God? If you are the generation of the generation of the generation of the generation that's been told that, because we're now 3 or 4 generations on that have forgotten God, how are you meant to know? How are you meant, if you're taught in school, if you're taught everywhere in culture, how are you meant to know? One of my dreams, another one of my dreams, I have quite a lot of dreams, is I want to see a simple thing, which is a scanning room in every city centre, showing the heartbeat of the child, doing ultrasounds. I want to see the rescue. I want us to be offering rescue centres, along with the schools that we're going to build, because we're going to build the culture. Because we've got to have an answer to this. I'm presenting you with quite a lot of bad news. But the good news is that with God, things change. We have to just be obedient where we are, and Glasgow is your patch. Glasgow is your patch. Redeem the schools. Redeem the hospitals. Save your babies. Save Glaswegian babies and their mums and dads. Save them. He's got you to do it. It's the job of the church. That is evangelism. It is evangelism. I tell you, if you save the babies, you'll save the mothers. And when they see the love of you, it's amazing how people's lives are changed when they choose life, not death. Because death, you go silent, you go scared, you go guilty. But again, if we say to the women who have had abortion, God loves you. He understands. He loves you. You are forgiven because his blood was shed, and it was costly, and it hurt. But he loves you so much, and he wants you to be free of the guilt that you carry, and maybe the secret that you carry. We've got to help to set women free from this burden that they carry, and shame, very often. But if we're silent, if we never talk about it, as the greatest human injustice the world knows, and this country knows right now, if we never talk about it, then how are they to know? And if we never give them the solutions, then how are they to know? Or another path, the life path, the Jesus path, the gospel path. Somebody touch my cloak, you're healed. I see you, I'm coming for you. Your sins are forgiven. Get up. Even when they expose abortions for baby girls, doctors prepared to carry out abortions on baby girls, Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, said that those doctors should not be prosecuted when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions. I've put this is an old slide, I've reinserted these slides because I want to show you the measure of the man that is our Prime Minister. I was there doing this case. So you have a Prime Minister who will not prosecute when doctors are caught being prepared to offer abortions on baby girls at 14 weeks because they're girls. And the Telegraph journalist was too scared to come to court, and we took the case back. For doing that, the wonderful Aisling Hubert was ordered to pay £47,000 costs. Keir Starmer took over the case, and dropped it. We stood. Standing is what counts. The outcome, win or lose, I'm standing in the light, I'm standing in the truth, I'm standing for Jesus. Win or lose, that's up to him. That is up to him. But I'm standing for justice this day. I'm standing for Jesus this day because he is all truth. In him, all truth holds together, and that's the side that I want to be on. Well, that's the church. This is you, this is you, this is you, this is the church. So people say, why do you take that hopeless case? No, the cases aren't hopeless. We don't take a single hopeless case. We take the cases of people that love Jesus, that are in trouble because they love Jesus. Why wouldn't I stand with them? I'm proud to stand with them. I say we take every single genuine Christian interest case that comes across our path, so far as we can, humanly speaking. We're doing our best. And then in in COVID, abortion law was entirely torn up. Apparently it was too dangerous to go to an abortion clinic, so they were going to send the pills home to have abortions. We sought to resist that. We were told it would only be temporary. We tried to resist that. We were fighting hard in COVID on these terrible laws to resist these terrible things. You see, now abortion has been entirely removed from clinics. With 2 pills you can take. We are taking the lives of our unborn children. You know, the women are very sad because they're aborting on their carpets. They're being rushed to hospital, 1 in 17 of them. This is not a healthy nation. Awake, arise, church. Awake, arise, church. Doctors that save babies, doctors that give reverse abortion pills, take a first pill, say no, I don't want to abort my baby, get the baby rescued. He gets reported to the General Medical Council by the abortion to have his medical license removed. Can we just have the volume up? I just want to give you a glimpse of what
the need was there. The women were looking for this service. They could not get it anywhere else, and nobody else was providing the service. So somebody, I felt, had to do it. It's brought a lot of heartache. There were times when I thought, I can't continue this. I've lost 2 babies in a row. But then when you get 3 in a row that are saved, it makes it so much worthwhile. But it's emotionally draining.
So it was the abortion lobby that reported him and wanted his license removed.
32 babies have been born. I had 20 babies, so 20 of my women.
There, you've met him. The point about it is this. We've now got over 100 babies saved. But I want thousands. I'd like, again, a dream. I'm going to be giving you, because I'm hoping that someone out there catches some of these dreams. Because I won't be able to do them all, my dreams. And another dream is an amazing line where that people can call when they type in abortion pills. They've got here's the reverse pill. You can change your mind. And I want that service I want to see that service operating up and down the nation. I want that to be there. You've got Scottish buffer zones. So now officially, in the United Kingdom, there are places there where you cannot go to speak, to rescue, to talk to women. That came into force around clinics from September 2024. Your abortion law is being reviewed currently, and those that are reviewing it, many of them are abortionist advocates. So again, this is something that you can and should write into, speak into, be active, engage, know your MSP. I know that many of you will here, particularly in this particular church. But actually get to know them. But also not always to just chew their ear off. Go and say, we want to support you. We want to come alongside you. We want to pray for you. Or come to our church, or come to our small group. Come and find out or come and see our life centre, or whatever it is that we're doing. Come and see our school. It's actually illegal to pray in the United Kingdom, in certain places now, outside clinics. I'm having trouble with my clicker a little bit here. Quick glimpse of this guy. He was praying outside on a piece of grass outside an abortion clinic. He's in a wheelchair. He gets dragged away by the police. Psalm 139, on the edge of a buffer zone outside an abortion clinic. It was deemed to be antisocial behaviour under the Crime and Policing Act. So the Bible was found to be insulting. He had a Bible in his hand, and he appeared to be reading aloud from it, Psalm 139. He was found guilty. That case last week was appealed. Our barrister in court was told by the judge that when we were cross-examining the workers from the abortion centre who had to be behind a screen. That we weren't to mention the word abortion. Can you see that that's crazy? But we have now a push to legalise abortion up to birth. Basically, abortion is healthcare. Women should be able to access abortion up to birth. And we've been seeking to resist that. So one of the things we do is we do go out onto the streets. So I was trying to push that back. Is my clicker not working again? Is there any way we can just try and make it work just because I know the content? Am I not clicking it at the... Could we try to move, Not working? Okay. The generation that killed its children will be killed by its children. If we devalue life, then there will be a shift towards that. And you've got this is very present in Scotland at this moment in time. I have been very involved, and I know that the Christian Institute representative is here, and Care Not Killing. We have been involved together in resisting, as long as my life is, as long as my professional life is, this issue has been there. We have resisted it over and over and over again. This is the biggest threat, biggest real threat that it's going to come. It feels like it's really uncivilized. When you get to euthanasia, it really is sort of end stage civilization. And you've had a big push here in Scotland over many years. And here you've got Liam MacArthur bringing in his bill. There's been a push over many years, hard cases, saying, I want to be able to go to Switzerland to kill myself. Again, I've put that slide back in. It's been out for a long time. Why? Because I want to show you that our Prime Minister, when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, weakened the guidelines around assisted suicide and said that if the assister was wholly motivated by compassion, then they should not be prosecuted in assisting in a suicide. Can you imagine? I can imagine me being the defense barrister. It would be so easy to paint a picture of compassion. You see, the thing is, these laws are pushed by people who are campaigners, who are very strong-minded. What about my mother-in-law with advanced dementia, who says to me all the time, I'm such trouble, Andrea. I say, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. Oh, no, I'm such a trouble. She says, no, you're not. I can't do anything anymore. You're the most beautiful woman in the world, I tell her. Who's going to... And what if Ida didn't have Andrew and Gareth and Mark? What if Ida was in a home? What if no one loved Ida? We can't afford a taboo on assisted dying, said Matthew Parris. The argument against it is that pressure will grow on the terminally ill to hasten their own deaths, and that's not a bad thing. If you're demented, Baroness Warnock, this is in our House of Lords, you're wasting people's lives, your family's lives, and you're wasting the resources of the National Health Service. If somebody wants to die because they're a burden to their family or the state, then I think that they too should be allowed to die. Have you got that? These are our politicians. Allowing people to choose the manner and moment of their own death should be seen as the hallmark of a compassionate society, said Andrew Copson. He's one of the lead campaigners on this. And it should be considered a basic human right. It's a basic human right, my body, my choice to end a child's life, my choice to end my life. That is not civilized. Do not kill. There we are. We've been running a number of campaigns outside Parliament. Don't make doctors killers. Kim Ledbett's bill published yesterday, bringing judges into it. That was our campaign last month when she brought it in. Kill the bill, not the ill, we said, with a number of gravestones. But now she says it's going to be all safe because you can have two doctors. Have we heard about the two-doctor rule before somewhere? Yeah? And we're going to have a judge. Judges. Of course judges think straight, don't they? best interests of children, best interests of someone to die. Alfie Evans, we had a ambulance waiting literally 100 meters from his hospital bed. A police guard kept guard of his room, even though we had secured alternative help in Italy. The hospital wouldn't release him. The judge said that it was in his best interest to die, and it would be too traumatic for him to travel. We weren't worried if it was going to be traumatic. After all, he was going to die if the judge had his way. All of these cases, we've run multiple cases where judges have said we can't win. And we have been vilified in the media, in the press, and name-called. But over the years, what has this absolutely shown me? That this language, that it's in your best interest to die, because the quality of your life is not worth living, that you remove food and fluids, so you're removing hydration, that these are the tests that are in the court right now, and we've been there. You know what? And the courts are closed. And they don't want you to tell anyone. That's why they didn't like when the Christian Legal Centre and Christian Concern told the world what was going on. Because if you do it behind closed doors, the same lawyers, the same doctors, the same judges, it's a closed room. 14 people making these decisions. You know, most of our cases were babies, but then we had the 19-year-old Sadiksha, and she was saying, I want to die trying to live. I want to live long enough to get experimental treatment for my mitochondrial disease. She was a bright, beautiful girl. COVID had meant that her trial, where she was making progress, had stopped. She caught COVID when she went into hospital, and they said that they needed to put her on to kind of palliative care. She said, no, I want to. She was trying to live. And they didn't want to resuscitate her if her heart stopped and so on. Just want you to, in my judgment, we weren't allowed to give her name. After the parents had spent all their money on other lawyers, we came in. I sometimes say we're last chance saloon. People find us in the end. We work pro bono on every single case, by faith, pro bono, because we know that people can't carry this alone, and they can't carry the threat of costs alone. And we know that to help them, we carry it by faith, by the people of God, by the gifts of the people of God. By the way, that's another miracle strand of the work of Christian Concern. They caught her delusional. They said that she couldn't think, but the thing was, she could speak. We had the offer of treatment in another place. They wouldn't release her. They said it was in her best interests to die. They overrode the parental authority. The state becomes the guardian. So medics and doctors. Look, I love medics and doctors. I know that most of them are doing their very best, yeah? But do we think a new assisted suicide law where we turn doctors into killers, but we also bring judges into it? What are they going to say? On the basis of this? Are we going to trust the judges to fully assess whether or not someone is not being coerced into making this decision? Also, this is a very important case. We're in the Supreme Court because justice is done in the light. And we want to break open the darkness that's over these courts. If you don't protect life, the abortion, what then happens, you get fertility, reproductive technologies, all right? 1978, the first test tube baby, Louise Brown. So for the first time, we create a life out with the sexual union of a man and a woman. This now becomes possible. It was meant to be a married mum and dad who were infertile that were going to provide a stable home for a child. That's how IVF was first created. You then move from 1978 to 1990. I'm going very fast because of the amount of material I've got. 1990, for the first time, we create embryos with the express purpose of experimenting upon them and then destroying them. So we now make life. Okay? 2004, we create cloned human embryos. We at the Christian Legal Centre sought to resist cloned human embryos. So we go from taking a life 1967 to making a life 1978 to faking a life 2004 to 2008 Human Fertilisation and Embryology Act, where for the first time we create animal-human hybrid embryos. That's the mixing of cow's eggs with human sperm. That is an offence on Genesis 1. It is defacing the face of the human race. It is making ourselves God. And in the midst of all of this, we entirely throw open, we commodify the making of children. We say we can make life in our image, we can make life when we want it. And so suddenly, because you can, a woman can have a baby by way of donor sperm. 2 men can have a baby by way of a surrogate womb. And you blow the whole possibility of creation order, you blow it all open. So you legislate morality. And then in Scotland, healthier Scotland. It's healthier if you give your gametes away, altruistically, so that people that are struggling with fertility can have one of your kind altruistic sperm that you've given. Can somebody tell me how this is good? Well, it's not. We know it's not good. But it's mad. Then, because we can, we know now we can manipulate the body. Men can't become women. Women can't become men. It is impossible. It is a lie. It is a delusion. We want to help anybody who is confused about their identity and of course we do. We want to love them. Truth sets people free. But look at this one here. The captain becomes Jake. The actress, the captain becomes Hannah. The actress becomes Jake. They get married. They actually have 2 children now. They are the patrons of Mermaids, which is the transgender charity that has been in our schools for the last decade. It's been exposed more recently, but we've been exposing this charity for the last 15 years. But you know the thing about this is look how convincing they look in the opposite sex. And what's going to happen increasingly is it's all going to be very convincing. We won't actually know what the truth is because this looks real. And especially with the whole advancement of AI technologies as well, so and bodily enhancements and so on and so forth. It's going to get weird. We need the gospel. Gender Recognition Reform Bill here. John Swinney is going to ask the Labour government to lift the veto on Scotland's Gender Recognition Reform Bill. This is serious because the new Labour government is pro-trans. Dying societies accumulate laws like dying men accumulate remedies. So it's that first point that I was making. In order to contain all of this, we have equality and diversity and human rights legislation. We liberalize marriage. We make access to divorce easier. 1973, the Matrimonial Causes Act introduces the concept of irretrievable breakdown. We have the Human Rights Act that says I'm free to be me, essentially. We have the Sexual Orientation Act. We start to redefine adoption and fostering. We start to say that we are not allowed to discriminate on the grounds of sexual orientation. We have Gender Recognition Act of 2004, which says that you can change your sex in law. We have a Civil Partnership Act in 2004, only 2004, 20 years ago, which said it was just about rights for 2 men and 2 women. It's not about marriage. Within 10 years, we had the Same-Sex Marriage Act. But that isn't marriage. It can never be marriage. It's a lie and it's false. And then we end up with hate crime legislation. the ripping up of abortion legislation during COVID, the Divorce, Dissolution and Separation Act, which is absolutely no-fault divorce. You can divorce for no reason at all. I can get out of my marriage more easily than I can get out of my pension. And all of this basically redefines family in law. So family is now a man and a man, a woman and a woman, with children, or civilly partnered married with children, either naturally or by way of fertility treatments. And all of those are considered absolutely equal in the law. This is the new normal, this is the new reality, and unless you conform, you will be punished. So you've got a Hate Crime and Public Order Act, and last night we had a guy that was here who had been picked up off the streets under this, told that his preaching in responding to a question was a hate crime, and they have policed it correctly. We have, it's not under this, but we have Dave Brackenbridge here, who has run a music service to schools, mental health services to schools, an extraordinarily brilliant program in the schools, reaching and changing the lives of thousands of children. It's reaching thousands of children. But because of his stand for biblical truth, has been targeted, and councils are removing contracts from him because of what he believes. It's happening. It's happening to Dave. It's happening to people that believe in the light right now. Neil, you've got to come and do your thing and put my clicker right again. Oh, no, I think it's, there we are. I'm going to move on from these slides. It means that foster parents are stopped from fostering when they reapply to foster. They've fostered very successfully for 14 years because they breach the Equality Act, because they won't promote homosexuality to 7-year-olds in their care. I'm going to need to use this if I can, just because it's not. And the judges in that case said, we sit as secular judges serving in a multicultural community of many faiths. We're sworn to do right to all manner of people after the laws and usages of the realm, without fear or favour, affection or goodwill. But the laws and usages of the realm do not include Christianity in whatever form. The aphorism that Christianity is part of the common law of England is mere rhetoric. Felix Ngole, we won this case at the Court of Appeal level for posting pro-marriage on his Facebook post. He was removed from his social work course because it was thought that service users would have a problem if they knew about his beliefs. We got him reinstated. He passed his course. He went and got a job. He came first in the candidate list. They Googled him, found out what had happened, and they then said, one of the charity's staff members said that essentially this is a judge, this is June of this year, the organisation's lawyers argue that they can't employ someone like Felix because his views on sex and gender might damage the mental health of people identifying as LGBTQ. They take their argument to the extreme when they assert that those identifying as LGBTQ+ might kill themselves if they discover Felix is a Christian. This is in the judgment in black and white. According to the argument called minority stress theory, people who define themselves as LGBT suffer more stress, anxiety, and depression than others because they're a minority. Anyone who holds views that disagree with their identity, like the Christian view on sex and gender, is considered a risk to their mental health. They said that John 3:16 was triggering. We're appealing this case. The cases of the Christian Legal Centre are writing Christian freedom jurisprudence at every single point. 15 years ago, we were put to proof on whether or not the cross was a Christian symbol. It was being submitted that it was not by the government. We've overturned that, but all the writings like this on the cross are back there in 2007, 2006. We overturned it. Nonsense like this. It's nonsense. But you see, you are a risk. You hate just for being Christian. Today, Justin Welby has resigned. But, listen, this was his first statement in the House of Lords. It's clear, in 2013, 10 years ago, yeah? It's clearly essential that stable and faithful same-sex relationships should, where those involved want it, be recognised and supported with as much dignity and the same legal effect as marriage. I knew then that he would not stand, because his first big test as the Archbishop of Canterbury, because it ought to be possible for the Archbishop to say what marriage is. And today, in many ways, I say that he resigned for the wrong thing. It's terrible what's come out today, and it is a resigning matter. This terrible abuse that's gone on in the church, and sadly, within the conservative evangelical circles. Sadly, it's heartbreaking. This is crippling me, because I can't make it all out. The Liberals are going to have a field day with it, because of the failure of just a few, because so much good came from that movement. But 2 weeks ago, he said that sex within a committed same-sex relationship was good. We did try to call for him to resign, but he didn't. We've been asking for him to apologise to Bernard Randall, but he hasn't. So blessing same-sex marriages, no callings for resignation then. It's over a safeguarding scandal. We now have services in churches. This is by an evangelical bishop here, sadly. It was under his diocese that actually brought in new services for naming the new name when Janet goes to John or Jane goes to Bartholomew. And Church of England ministers that resisted that are told by the current Archbishop of York to get with the programme or leave the church. Lincoln Cathedral, lit up as the rainbow. The Church of Scotland went way before, yeah? To speak about the truth about homosexuality or any sexual sin, you discriminate. You're hateful. No, you're not. Actually, you're loving. Soft heart, soft heart. It's loving to speak the truth. The truth sets us free. But you're a homophobe. You're a bigot. You're a radical right-wing misogynist. No, we're not. We're loving. We're speaking the truth of Jesus Christ. We love, we love, we love, we surrender, we give. Towns and the cities. Regent Street, we sought to challenge the putting up of these flags last year. It's the Prince's estate, the Crown's estate that puts these up. In government, I don't believe in gay marriage despite being a Conservative, said David Cameron, and I support gay marriage because I'm a Conservative. And Nick Clegg, Deputy Prime Minister at the time, said it's all going to become very normal. And who's it going to become normal for? The schools. And so what do we get? LGBT Inclusive Education Scotland. You're from 2021 advancing LGBT inclusive education in all schools through a phased implementation approach, the journey, the achievement and excellence. And you're going to be teaching relationships and sex education to the National Resource for Relationships. Sexual health is always about sexualizing our children and who they are. On a sex survey in the past year, 12 months, to children, have you had vaginal or anal sex with someone? How often did you or your partner use a condom? And then asked to answer that question. Children. Heather has 2 mummies. These are the books in our schools. Ash's mum, Jack and Jim, and Tango Makes 3. My Princess Boy, Daddy and Daddy Penguin, honeysuckle dresses, blossoms, voices chanting, doggies panting, gay pride. Little children who refused to go on gay pride, removed from the classroom, her mother visited by social services and the police. I have a dream if boys could go to the same toilets as girls. This little girl can't even spell yet. You have a school here in 2021 which an email to parents from Castleview said it wanted children to be comfortable taking part and that trousers and leggings could be worn under the skirts if needed, and it invited to provide skirts for some youngsters if none were suitable, none were found at home. So it's actually encouraging cross-dressing in the schools. Nicola Sturgeon, I think that we've seen her downfall, that's good, and also Humza Yousaf, we've seen their downfall, and part of it was by going, but it's not over, by a long chalk right now. But it's interesting that somehow there has been a reining in of some kind. So church, awake and arise. It's as if you've been given some kind of, it doesn't look great, so I'm told the atmosphere is heavy, but it's not as bad as then. Well, maybe it is, I don't know, but I mean, this was bad. And the name, again, that's a state on your children. Well done to the Christian Institute on this campaign to ensure that that was then repealed. Also, the smacking ban on children. The drag queens are in. School chaplains are out. Bernard Randall, he's not been able to preach a sermon for 6 years. His case, he's been reported as a safeguarding risk. He's a safeguarding risk to children because of that sermon. He has been reported to the counter-terrorism squad. This has twice gone across the desk of Justin Welby, who said, essentially did nothing. Said, no, it's fine. The actions of the Bishop of Derby were fine. So did not intervene. The sermon was there. He didn't intervene. Today he has resigned because of a cover-up of a really terrible abuse scandal within the church. But this is the man, that man, the cover-up, that he got away with stuff for years and years and years. But this man who's done nothing, the evidence is all in a sermon, has been suspended and can't do his job for 6 years. It comes at a price, you know. If Bernard were here tonight, he'd talk about the toll on his life. Christy Higgs, her friend saw what she posted on a Facebook post, and as a result of that, reported her to her employer, and she was removed from her pastoral role as a teaching assistant. That's a very important case for free speech in this country. It's going to actually potentially be in the end, be the seminal. I'm praying that we win. This case could actually really, it's a defining moment for free speech and for freedom of Christian expression. And we're awaiting the judgment right now. That says outside the court earlier this year. A mum didn't want her child to take part in a pride parade. She went in to speak to the school staff. The head came in with her daughter, and her daughter was wearing, who was also worked in the school, a T-shirt that said, "Why be racist, sexist, homophobic or transphobic when you could just be quiet?" Parents, 6 and 7-year-olds, were going into the school dressed as boys, dressed as girls, and their children got very distressed because they woke up in the night saying, "Mummy, am I going to become a girl?" They were getting really distressed. And they said that their inability to believe a transgender person is actually a real female or male, the refusal to acknowledge a transgender person's true gender, remember these children were 7, means that they are transphobic. And this was the education diocese, the Church of England education body, supported the school in opposing the parents who were raising this issue. There's the school, there's there. Judges who say that children do best with a mum and dad are removed from the bench. Teachers that say, "Well done, girls," to a group of girls, one of them is identifying as a boy, are removed from schools, and 5 years on, they come after his teaching license. So he is now no longer able to teach in a classroom. Bernard can't preach, Joshua can't teach. Nurses in Darlington confronted with a man over 6 foot who calls himself Rose, wearing his boxer shorts with his genitalia visible, who says on social media he's trying to get his girlfriend pregnant, they are told basically get with the program, be more open-minded. This is actually now, these are regular women, they're not Christians, they're actually just, they call themselves like Northern Lasses, Angels of the North. They've come to us for help. There we are outside 10 Downing Street. I think that was just before Korea. The day I flew to Korea, that's what I was doing. There they are with Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary. Let's pray that he writes good guidance on this. Politicians are removed because they say that they believe in marriage. As I've gone on, I have no fear. It's wonderfully freeing to really love Jesus, to know his truth. We mustn't be reckless. We must be very wise, intelligent. Remember right way back? Does it seem like 2 days ago I started this presentation? Anyway, but the point about way back, I said with passion and intelligence and prayer. Yeah? And when you kind of keep on proving it, what are they going to do? You know, if we are not being investigated at Christian Concern, either our bank accounts, our practicing certificates, our charity the charity status of one, if something isn't happening like that, it's not normal. They're always trying to close us down. When they close us down, well, God will reveal what he's going to do what he's going to do next. They haven't managed yet. Conversion therapy bans are being pushed. A Scottish conversion therapy ban got kicked into the long grass, but there's a push by the new government. There's a push in the Labour government in Westminster to introduce this. This means that even pastoral work, saying you can change your behaviour, may, as you know, will come under jeopardy. But it's not just pastoral work, it's counsellors who already are unable to get certification, already banned because of the Memorandum of Understanding. We need to contend also for them. They have their bank accounts closed. They have death threats. I walked through this death threat with Mike Davidson over a whole weekend, and I too was receiving repeated calls. And the police don't investigate that. Barclays closed their account because of essentially a mob that came against the work of Mike Davidson. We build culture, so we've got a whole website that we're building, Free to Talk, where we want to give tools for people to do that. You know, so again, standing is winning. So they tried to chuck the Wilberforce Academy out of almost every college that we went to in Oxford or in Cambridge. They come against us, throw us out, mount a protest, but we've continually stood. The government does not tell a church in a health crisis to close. It's just totally out with the remit, out with the status of the work of the government, because the church is the government in itself, in a sense. But so many churches were the first to close. Thank you, William, for leading the charge in Scotland. Thank you for that. Thank you, because this case was watched across the globe. And as a result of this case, the 27 men that stood, as a result of this case, amazing jurisprudence has been set about the autonomy of churches and their freedom to open. And also, it provided courage for others across the world. So they were following this case in New Zealand, in Australia, in other jurisdictions in order to stand. This is absolutely vital, so that if something like this happens again, in whatever format, in whatever form, we have this as strong jurisprudence. And I hope that others will have learned, and I was very grateful for the courage of William and other church leaders here. Thank you for standing. Street preachers, we've represented thousands of street preachers across the years. We've got a 100% success rate. Imagine if we hadn't, because people say, oh, those street preachers, the way they do it. Can you imagine if we hadn't been there? 15 years ago. You know, they're often put in police cells. If we hadn't been there, well, maybe William Philip would be locked up by now. Maybe the church door would be closed. Keeping the gospel alive on the streets means the pulpit is kept alive. Crosses permitted still. But what we have rising, when Christianity fades and secularism goes mad, something rises, and I'm finishing very fast now. You see this. We're seeing this on our streets. Islam rises. We have now a Muslim bloc in Parliament, a real Muslim bloc, maybe about 30 MPs, believing in Sharia law, believing in the Gaza state, applying pressure. It's real in Westminster right now. They're good on assisted suicide. The demographic is that they live in cities, massive social change. Muhammad is the number one name over many years now. In many places, 30 or 40 or 50% of the population of cities, Muslim mayors, Muslim councillors, Muslim politicians. Churches are becoming mosques. Mosques are not like churches in that they are Sharia centres. So what you have is that the imam marries and divorces people there. Sharia law is dispensed from within a mosque. It's not, we must get out of our head that a mosque is like a church. It's not. And Sharia law is above the law. And so it's operational in mosques near you. And that's bad news for women, and there's bad news in all sorts of situations. The Quran is being read in our cathedrals. We have a Muslim call to prayer in our cathedrals. The Archbishop of Canterbury, now gone, breaks iftar with lead imams. We have Ramadan lights in London for Easter. No Easter representation to be seen in this is Oxford Street. We have hadiths at King's Cross on the billboards. We have prayers in Parliament. Our chapels in hospitals and prisons have become mosques. We have Humza. Can you imagine if that had been Kate Forbes and she brought in William Philip to pray for her? We have MPs that have been killed in the name of Islam. In our university schools, buying Islamic money, Sharia money, buying up universities because our universities are bankrupt. Sharia councils, buying up city centres, grooming gangs, massive Islamic grooming gang culture in some of our cities. Christian and in Glasgow, we've worked a lot with girls that have been groomed. We have to safe house converts. By the way, that's very heavy work. Let's plant churches in Muslim areas in your city, in Glasgow. Let's really love our Muslim neighbour, because they don't know what the book says. They don't know what the Quran says. We've got to really get alongside. This is another work, by the way. You know all these works I've set you tonight? Well, who has Islam on their heart? We've got questions to ask you, Muslim friend, because I'm going to whiz through this. Who has Muslims on your heart? Let's plant a bit of the Tron and other churches into the Islamic areas. Let's win them for Jesus. Let's bring them in. Literally, we had to put a guard, security around Hatun Tash. Her life, they've tried to take her life multiple times. She had to go into hiding. I fear for her. Watch her video. We've got these videos on our website. But be happy, everyone, because John Swinney says it's Islamophobia Awareness Month this month here in Scotland. Well, I could be, potentially what I've just said is Islamophobic, yeah? I love my Muslim neighbour. I want them to know Jesus. Christianity brings respect for human life, dignity for women, purification of sexual expression, the rise of science, the abolition of slavery, political and economic liberty, education for all, hospitals and hospices. That's our hope. We are the culture builders. We are going to where culture fades, we will build the networks. We will see Christian culture in every sphere of life, in our seminaries, in our politics, in hospitals, in counselling, in fashion. We're going to build it, and we're going to build it from this place. Glasgow, you build Christian culture from this place, from here. It starts tonight here. And I know that there are different places, but that's where it starts. Well, it's already started, of course. But this is it. This is the challenge. It's not to hear this and be defeated. It's to say, we're going to build our families. We're going to build sexual purity. We're going to build our schools, and we're going to build our hospitals, and we're going to be the light of the city. We're going to be the hope place, the healing place, the happy place. We're going to look so different that people are going to come in because they compare. We're going to be saying to our children that are just shocked because they don't know what their identity is, because they've been told they can be anything they want to be and have no boundaries put on them, they don't even know who they are, and have been sexualized and are wrecked because they've been sexualized. We're going to tell them, here is the hope. Here is the rescue. It's the best news ever. The gospel is really good news, and it works, by the way. You know, there is power in the gospel. There is power in prayer, and there is power in the righteousness. The gospel is what? It's the righteousness of God. Imagine, the gospel is the righteousness of God. It's the how now to live. So we're building our schools. We've got books down there. We won't leave you. We're here to serve you. We're God's dominion people. We want to live for, we want to live for Him now into eternity. It's the sanctification of vocation. It's the gospelization of the whole of life. We're going to enlighten, educate, envision, equip. We're going to have a longer horizon, a wider scope, a deeper critique. This is hard work and a better network. We're going to love and champion one another. From our churches, our networks, we're going to love and we don't compete. We don't compete, everyone. We're too few. We complete. We don't compete with one another. We complete the work of Christ together on this earth. We build the kingdom of God together on this earth. There's no room to get exhausted by petty anythings. There's too much to be done. So we want visibility and practice. And what I would love, if you haven't heard of us before tonight, or if you don't receive our emails, the best present you could give to me tonight is a connect, is to push a connect, because we want to know who you are. We want to build the little army that says yes to Christ. Let's make His name famous in this nation. Thank you so much for your time, and I believe now Neil is going to open the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm sure that was something really, it was a lot to take in. I know you might have some questions as well, so we're going to open up the floor now just to a few questions to anybody that would like to ask Andrea anything regarding the presentation and the work of Christian Concern. Yep. Did we got a mic? Oh, okay, we just got one there, then we'll...
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, thank you so much for your absolutely amazing talk. It's just that it seems to me that our position is so incredibly difficult because secularists, everybody, and in their liberal mindset believe that they have the moral high ground. So how do we respond to that? How can we actually speak into that and say, well, where morality comes from, what it actually is?
Well, you are free to speak. I think that we have allowed ourselves to be subdued by the culture. And the devil's done a good job on that, in a sense. He's kind of, because... I say, a nation is a reflection of the church within the nation. And what happened, maybe, in the 1970s and 80s, I'm talking about my lifetime, it's as if the church stopped speaking, and church leaders stopped, and I love church leaders, but in a sense, if I could go back to when I was a young woman, I'd go and say to the church leaders, I need you to understand this and train your flock to go into the workplace, because it's becoming so hostile in the world out there. It's like this needs to be a boot camp. The church needs to be a boot camp where we get trained, because I'm not going to be able to answer the whole of that, because that's a big question. We could come to the Wilberforce Academy. So the point about it is, in the church, we need to be trained to be the cultural kingdom bringers. And we do that in all kinds of ways. So sometimes the way in which we're going to do that is because we're going to be mums at the school gate, we're going to love people, and we're very pastoral. And so sometimes that takes relationship, you know. Other times, there needs to be proclamation. I think we've allowed ourselves as Christians to be relegated to a social service. We'll be the pastors, we'll bring you hot coffee, we'll bring you a blanket, we'll provide the food bank. By the way, all those things are really important. But don't take out the prayer. Don't take out the Bibles. We've allowed ourselves to have the prayer and the Bibles removed. Why? When that's the power. We've got to put them back in. And when we do that, we're going to see lives transformed. We are. When we do that, we're going to see addicts transformed. We're going to see people that are lost in transgenderism and homosexuality transformed. We just require the boldness. Because it's the speaking of the gospel, which is foolishness to many, is powerful. And I think that we've got to kind of recover some of that courage. So part of it is just the courage. And I think that's courage breeds courage.
Yeah. We have a question there. Yeah.
I'm interested in the assisted dying bill and what your organisation is actually doing about that. Really concerned about that more than anything, because I believe a lot of people will accept that more readily because they see people that are very ill that want to die as actually relieving that burden on an already overstretched NHS, palliative care services, you name it. I do know people that's their thinking about it. So I'm really interested to know what yourselves and obviously the Christian Institute as well, what's happening around that.
Yeah. We're all working very hard on that right now. We have resources on our website. We actually have a standalone page or a part of the website for that. So we have toolkits. If you sign up to our list, what you then have, you will be receiving that information. We're encouraging you to go and see your MPs, MSPs. We're encouraging you to do that. We will be calling out people to pray, and we're going to call out people to Parliament. This is not over yet. And God has brought us back from the brink on this issue multiple times before. Humanly speaking, it does look quite bleak because there are hundreds of men and women in Parliament that don't know what they're doing. Our idea, because they're new, something like 350. But what I found, because I'd love to camp in Parliament continually, actually, because they don't know what they're doing right now. If you go and see them, they're really interested in what you've got to say. So it's very fertile ground for the gospel right now. Fertile ground for speaking the truth. So go and see them with the toolkits that Christian Institute, Care Not Killing, ourselves, that we have. Please go and do that. That would be great. There are many very powerful arguments for that. Furthermore, if there is anyone here that knows of anyone that's terminally ill but wants to speak life, then the media really wants to hear from them. So please turn in names to me on that, please. That's something that we're wanting to do, all right?
And we do have resources available on the table, so afterwards, please do take them with you as well.
Yeah, we want these resources to go at the back, so there's free materials on the back there. Please take them, use them, give them to others. And we also have a publishing house at Christian Concern, and we've got some books there that set out the theology of why we do what we do, and then there's also some of our cases and also some books on these issues.
For an employer who's become a gay pride sponsor, and I do hybrid work, so I'm 60% in office, 40% home, but we now have to work under massive banners, LGBTQ banners. As a Christian, do I have a right to say I don't want to work under that.
Yes. Yes. And so, I mean, so the answer is yes to that. And so, and I think that this is the kind of conversation that I would take you away and we'd have a cup of coffee somewhere and I'd understand exactly who you are, what you're doing, what your position is, and then how we would, at the first point, because we want to go in very gently, what we don't want you to do is lose your job. But you have every right to challenge that. And I think employers need to begin to hear that there are people that don't want to live under that oppressive banner, and it is oppressive. So, I mean, I would also ask you, are there others that feel the same way? Because actually a collective is better than one person alone. Probably not is usually the answer to that. But, if there is, then that's also powerful. But yes, you absolutely can write in to say that offends your conscience, that it actually and with regard to the manifestation of your Christian faith and how you feel. So we can there are ways in which you can do that. So the answer is yes. You can raise it. You then will become mocked. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We have a question here, and then there.
Hi, Andrea.
Oh.
Hi.
What speaks to me the most tonight was when you were talking about South Korea and combating the ideologies that we have in the world just now. The church isn't making a dent in it. How do we combat that? How do we combat the ideologies that's enforced in our schools when the church...
Yep.
I believe the church is failing to reach and combat that ideology. I sometimes see that we need to get out in the streets more, we need to make our own voice heard, we need to make platforms in places like George Square, we need to get all the churches out on a Sunday. I believe that the only way to combat it is to get the people out in the street. Because if they can have pro-rallies about racism and asylum seekers and refugees, and the council's allowing these things to happen in our streets, then why can we as a church not leave our buildings and get out in the street and make a difference?
Yeah, I do think, I think what you've hit upon there, and I think it's actually quite important, is that, why wouldn't we have a holy parade? Why wouldn't we actually do something like that, or a big Easter parade with the cross, we may want, but actually there's a sense in which we want to be visible to the world. We are here. We're not going away, and that's what they've done in Korea. The gay pride, they've stopped gay pride coming to Korea for many years. It came, but it was small, and they came to the streets with hundreds of thousands of more, all dressed in white. That's what the church does there. Because they've watched the way of the West. So if we have festivals, we take ourselves off to fields in remote places, and nobody sees or cares what we do. In these we're irrelevant to Westminster. That nobody's scared by that. Oh, they're singing their choruses in the fields over there. And it doesn't bother anyone. It's kind of like that, and we actually need to take the message of Christ. It is true that we need to take the message of Christ. All these things are both and, they're both and. But I do think we need very public witnesses, and we need symbols. We need to bring symbols back again. So the flag is a dominance. This is gay pride. It's a celebration of sin, sexual sin. And you know what? Former homosexuals will say, we're all looking for love, we're all looking for acceptance, we're all looking for identity. They're broken-hearted. They're actually broken, and now we've got to remember that. We've got to be tender-hearted on this. But as I say, I think symbols are important. We need to fly Christian flags on our civic buildings. We need to have services. Christian music playing. Christian music rather than music that swears, music that is sexualized, music that is hopeless, sometimes even demonic. Imagine the theatre, not, I don't know what's on in Glasgow, but in Edinburgh it's Kinky Boots. Well, imagine we had something really beautiful in the centre of Edinburgh, where I am right now, for the gospel. Because we make wonderful music, Christians, we make wonderful art, we may tell wonderful stories. Well, let's put them on in our theatres.
We have a question here first, and then, we'll come.
Thanks very much. We've had some really important and wide-ranging things talked about tonight that you presented to us, and there's a sense in which a lot of what we're having to do is reactive.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is where is the starting point to start getting on the front foot in all this? And what are the toughest nuts, in one sense, that have to be cracked and addressed first?
Yeah, I think that's a hard question, because I mean, I've been throwing out lots of ideas, and that's why I say I think there is a sort of both and. I mean, and that's why we need to have networks, because we can't. No one can do everything. But I think one of the things that we've done at Christian Concern is we've got an education department, and we're involved in 40 startup schools. So a really good place to start is with the next generation. So if you're putting into a little 4-year-old Andrea Minichiello the gospel and saying God loves you, got a plan and a purpose for your life, and teaching that little child to be pure. If you're starting there, and this is what we're seeing in our schools, little schools, startup schools, they become bigger and bigger and bigger, and the little babies grow up, and you're seeing a next generation of amazing young people coming through. So that's a good place to start. It's the preaching from the pulpits into the culture. It is being visible in the public space. I mean, where institutions have left us, then we do need to start building our own institutions, unless we can heavily influence something that is there. I suppose it does start with what we're doing in the church. It's about a love. The thing about the Korean church is if you're prepared to get up and be there at 5:30 in the morning and pray, and it's not just that church, by the way. I mean, it's everywhere in Korea. That's a love and commitment that we're way off. We're just way off that here. So where does it start? To be honest, I don't exactly know. We've all got to do our part. It starts here in the church. It starts in our hearts. Then it starts in the church. And then God is going to give us the tools. We have to be vocal about abortion as well. By the way, the fact, because that's blood on our hands. And so we can't live with that death in our society without mourning that death.
We've got 2 more questions, and then we're done. Here, and then.
Just as you're saying, I've really had a sense of urgency for such a long time, and in my spirit man, in my prayer time. And I have brought forward to some churches that I feel God is saying to go out and have worship, beautiful music out in maybe George's Square, because, as I say, because the church is not taking dominion, the enemy is taking dominion. And I think God's a wee bit peeved, actually. And also the schools, I'm sensing there needs to be a strategy I know Scripture Union is diminishing a wee bit where we are in Renfrewshire. But I just feel if we don't get into the schools quickly, it's going to get worse. And also media, there must be a way that we can get into mainstream media rather than just the God channel. So I'm just thinking we need to get our heads together and get some solutions for God.
There we are. She was answering your question.
And one more question.
Thank you. Thanks very much for everything you said. I just want to share something because I'm old enough to remember this. But in the late 80s, it's a wee shout out for Glasgow in a way. there was a massive March for Jesus here. And I remember it because I was on it, and there were lorries, there were massive speakers blaring out, "Shine, Jesus, shine," Graham Kendrick. And we marched from just up by John Street, all the way past the City Chambers, George Square, all the way up this street, over the Clyde, and it stopped the traffic, and people were really interested because there was a lot of us, and we made our presence known. It wasn't one or two people trying their best, but alone, it was a lot of us.
Yeah.
And we all came together, and we didn't have a spirit of fear, but we encouraged one another in the Lord. And people were happy, they were singing, they were dancing. They weren't shouting, "You're going to hell." I mean, we know what the Bible says, but it's like people were attracted to Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we need to do in this age, because people are depressed, they're confused, they don't know what to do with the lies and the deception. But if the Christians start to actually look happy and not miserable and dance in the street to hymns and choruses and the worship music that is everywhere around us to use, then I think we can make a change, and the Lord will use us.
Well, thank you. That's a note of optimism to end on, isn't it? And I think what I've said, I've been heavy in my spirit. What I can say is that we know that this is good news, and we never know when or how God is going to move. And we know that He brings joy and healing and hope. And this is so fantastic for that world out there. And you know, it could happen at any minute. Something could change in a moment. I mean, there are many things so that's why we've got to have these ideas, know one another, speak to one another, act, and we will see Him act. Amen. God bless you, beautiful Glasgow. May God bless your streets and your people, and may life to your place. God bless you.